Hey guys, almost dark here. First day in Sevilla in the south of Spain. And, I'm not the dude to talk about this for sure. Talking about Israel and Palestine, me talking about that has kind of a Ja Rule kind of feel to it. If you don't know that reference, get caught up on your Dave Chappelle. Um, yeah, so let me take a look out here. It's pretty cool. Um, so I don't know. I was standing outside of the place we were staying at in London the other day, and there's like a bunch of families there all together. Tons of kids. They're running around everywhere, and I saw a couple of people that look, kind of like Orthodox Jews, and I started talking to the guy sitting on the steps. He's like, "Where are you from?" And I'm from Florida, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I got three companies in Florida, and one in Jacksonville and one in Ocala and all this stuff." And oh, okay, cool. Where are you guys from? And I thought he was American because his English was like perfect with really like no detection of an accent. And he said he's from Israel, and he just flew his whole family and a bunch of families traveling together. They just left Israel to get the hell out of there. They were in London for a day, and then going to New York, where presumably, they got friends and family that they can stay with. So, literally, like 30 people were out there on the street. Half of them young kids. They seemed like they were doing fine. The kids were running around and playing. They were on their phones, doing typical kid stuff. And, that was good to see that they weren't like miserable. But, man, that really hit me hard. Sometimes you need something personal like that to wake you up and make you feel like the gravity of a serious situation. It's like, oh, like people staying at the same place that I'm staying are staying there because they're like refugees from this, crazy terrorist attack slash, commencement of war. So that hit hard, and just that just hit me hard, and I was like literally, tears welling up in my eyes as I just kind of sat there and felt that. The situation is really upsetting because these kinds of things can be prevented. Um, Happy people don't join terrorist organizations and commit brutal, savage attacks. Um, I liken it kind of to gangs. All throughout the Americas. It's not like wealthy, well-educated kids who have a good life. um, they don't like put down the video game console and decide to join a gang, right? It's people who are in a desperate situation, who've grown up in poverty and are in a society where they feel hopeless and they feel very much less than, right? Poverty is one thing, but it's magnified when everybody else around you seems to be doing great. And I think Palestine, with Israel being like a global economic superpower and, crazy GDP and, awesome average salaries for the citizens, it's clean, it's safe, they're allied, trade partners with everybody else in the world. And I mean, things are just great for Israel. Um, and then they're kind of trapped within Israel's borders in what's kind of like a dilapidated Indian reservation almost. It's not conducive to economic development. It's not conducive to really anything positive. And then, of course, they elected Hamas to run the country, and they've kind of run it like a dictatorship ever since. And anyway, the whole thing, if Palestinians were thriving and well integrated into the world economy, and they were focused on starting businesses and companies, and things were really happening there. There was a lot of developments and improvements. Sanitation was great. All those things, there would never be, this kind of rot from within and this intense desire to kill and maim and punish and seek revenge and seek flat out genocide against the Israelis. It's pretty intense. Of course, Israel has a really high degree of culpability, and because they kind of sowed the seeds of this by not finding a better solution to the problem and committing a lot of atrocities themselves upon the Palestinians. So, with the U.S. backing, the U.S. obviously, we're kind of like the enablers of this in a sense, because Israel wasn't really held accountable for the atrocities that they were committing. And I'm not super in the know about all those things. I have followed Abby Martin, who has done a lot of reporting on it through Empire Files. I think it was about 5 years ago. She did a really long form interview with Joe Rogan. Empire Files and Abby Martin was the first thing I ever donated to on Patreon monthly. So that's really near and dear to my heart. I feel really strongly about the work that they do, and I'm a big fan. The only person I've ever seen live from YouTube, I went to a performance of Jimmy Dore and Max Blumenthal. Max Blumenthal from the Gray Zone has done, tons and tons of reporting about all the different heinous atrocities that have been committed to the Palestinians by the Israelis. So how do they get away with this kind of thing? Why isn't it a war crime? Why isn't the UN cracking down and intervening here? Again, I do think a lot of it is because, the U.S., their backing kind of gives special status to Israel and allows them to kind of be bad actors in all of this. Anyway, obviously the result has been disastrous, and it's really sad to see that it drove so many people to want to commit such brutal acts of violence against another race of people. Obviously now, you can't say sorry now and pat them on the back and tell them, hey, don't do this anymore, everything's going to be okay. Fine, here's all the things you've been wanting and asking for. Obviously that's not going to happen. They're going to get bombed to oblivion to some extent, and the situation is just really tragic. So I think the takeaway for me, and what I've thought about a lot as I've been kind of consuming a lot of information about the situation, is just, we can't have this system in the world where we have winners and losers. I don't see any need for that. Why do we have to have these big winners and losers in terms of individuals and in terms of entire nations, where certain people are doing great and thriving and flying around the world on planes and having a great time and healthy, wealthy, well-educated, world is their oyster, while then we have all these other people who are losers in life, and they live in abject poverty, barely have access, or maybe have no access whatsoever, to clean drinking water, basic sanitation, basic human necessities, right? So that's what irks me the most. There's no reason for anybody in the world today to be living the kind of existence that would be, prehistoric, caveman-like existence with no running water, and that's just not necessary. So to me, it's ultimately, as most things are, a failure of the system. Have an economic system that really doesn't have any kind of compass that points it towards solving problems like that. If you don't have money, too bad. If you have a problem, you got to go invent the next tech company, and if you don't, well, you're shit out of luck. Yeah, that's just not good enough, and we need to figure out something as a global population that is more interconnected than ever before, to figure out how to balance things out, to make sure that nobody's living a miserable existence. And to me, just on a moral level, I don't really see how we can justify like living these spectacular, easy, fun, enjoyable lives while people are, just kind of rotting away in misery, and we just kind of look the other way. And that's we can look the other way all we want, but this is going to keep resurfacing like this, and it's going to lead to much bigger conflicts, which obviously is the worst case scenario. Nobody wants that, and it seems really likely that this is going to escalate and involve other countries and become maybe the basis for, some kind of more global World War III like conflict. And that's what letting people just live basically imprisoned within, treated unfairly and economically impoverished, letting people just rot and fester in that type of environment, it's going to lead to bad outcomes. And they can't be solely held responsible for the negative ideas and hateful ideologies that flourish within their communities, because their communities are suffering and have been neglected. They don't have a way out that they can see. And it gives rise to terrorist organizations, and it's easy to blame other people, get people on board, and it's easy to pass off really aggressive, violent religious ideologies and things like that. It takes much better and is accepted much more readily by people who are suffering and miserable and disenfranchised and living in abject poverty. So anyway, until we can fix that, we gotta just continue to expect that this kind of thing is going to pop up. And that's all I have to say about that. But I'm certainly heartbroken about everything that's going on, and we'll see how things play out. But I don't expect it to be good, but I certainly hope that something can happen and happen pretty quickly and not involve the rest of the world.